Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I want to make my first Swift project video where we make an entire app from scratch in the entire video. It may be a little long, but you can skip ahead and see if you like it. Right now, I'm going to show you guys what the app will look like at the end of the video. This is a very simple app, but it teaches a lot. It is a to-do list app, or it's a list maker app. And what you do here is say, well, I have all this text here, and then I can click this plus button, and I can click this text box and enter in anything I want, and the text box is different than my keyboard. So I can enter in I need a job, click done, and then that gets added to the list. And then I can add other things to list as well by clicking the text box, clicking done, and voila. For this video, I have already written up all the code, obviously. I'm displaying the app. But I'm going to show you guys how to make this app from scratch. But instead of taking all the time to type all the code out, I am simply going to look at my project on my other monitor, copy the code in, and explain how the code is done, step by step. Okay, let's get started. The first thing you want to do, let me drag this in, is you want to start up Xcode and you want to create a single view application. Okay, next, you can name it anything you want. I named it to-do list app. Okay, then click next. Make sure this is Swift. You don't need any of these check marks, but by default I have them checked, and that's okay. Make sure this is Swift. Organization name and that stuff does not matter. It should be whatever you want though. Put it anywhere you want. I'm going to put it on the desktop. I probably will delete it later. Okay. Now the first thing you want to do, or the way I structured this project, and we're doing this my way because you guys are watching me, is that we are not going to use the storyboard. In my opinion, the storyboard is great for newbies and it's a great thing to do, but it's simply a drag and drop mechanism. And everything you can do in storyboard, you can do in code. And what I want to introduce you guys to is how to do everything in code and not use the storyboard. And so this app is not going to use the storyboard. In fact, the first thing we're going to do, or the second thing, is delete the storyboard. So go here to main interface main and delete this. This tells your app what the storyboard file is called, which by default is called main with a capital M. Then I'm going to go over to main.storyboard. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to click delete. It's going to say, are you sure you want to delete this? And we are sure. We are going to move it to the trash. And we are not going to worry about this. Okay? And Xcode's being a little bit slow for me. Then we are going to move to app delegate. Okay? In app delegate, we're going to do some kind of code that we haven't seen before. Since we deleted the storyboard, which is our drag and drop, we now need to initiate the beginning frame of our app, the beginning rectangle that the storyboard automatically creates for you. And so we can do this in code. Like I said, we can replicate everything in storyboard in our code. And so we're going to replicate the start of our app. If you can see, our app delegate class is kind of what is run when our app is created, is loaded into our phone for the first time. It also, a few other methods, the most common one you'll use is did finish launching with options. That's the method called when it finishes launching. The other methods that are automatically made for you are when other things happen. For instance, application will resign active. So when you still have the app, but you just hit the home button and you go outside of the app, it's still active, it still exists. But maybe you want to do some things. For instance, turn off the location service so you save battery. We don't need to do that in this app, but it's something you may want to think of. Okay, so we have this window variable automatically created for us, and this window variable is our window. We only have one UI window per app typically. 99.99% of the time, you're going to have one UI window, and that window is your app. It's what you see on the screen. It's the whole screen, okay? So instead of using the storyboard, like I said, we got to create our own UI window, and we do this by simply instantiating a UI window object and giving it a frame. So we need to give the UI window the size of our iPhone screen. And luckily, Apple knows how to do this by doing the UI, by taking the UI screen class, getting the main screen, and getting the bounds. So it will be, the bounds is the rectangle around your phone. So it has a width and a height. So the bounds will have, a width of 300 and a height of 600. And it will be different for every phone. But the code of UI screen the UI screen class knows the different phones, so it will know the different sizes. So that's all good. Okay, let me copy the other code in and explain it. Now I do a few other things. In line 20, window.equals root view controller, I need to tell the window, I've now created the window, which is just a blank white screen. Now I need to tell it which view controller to start off. The view controller has our views and has our table view. In our case, our root view controller is our table view. I have taken that view controller, and that's in a class called view controller, is our table view controller, and I have surrounded that in a UI navigation controller. What you typically see in an iOS app, in most apps anyway, when you start clicking things, you kind of get deeper and deeper into the app. If you kind of think of it, it's like a stack. So things, you click a screen and then another screen overlays it, and then you click something else within that screen and another screen overlays it, but then you can hit back twice to go back to the main screen, or they call it the root screen. And so that's what a navigation controller allows you to do. That's what the common interface is in iOS. It allows you to basically add on displays and basically have a back feature in your app, a back and forward feature in your app. So you create a UI navigation controller, and you encompass that in the view controller. So you're saying the root view controller, your first view, is the view controller. Okay? Then we say the background color is white. I could change this to orange, red, whatever. And we're using UIColor.whiteColor. So UIColor is a class Apple has made, and we are calling it a class method, which means that we do not need to create a UIColor object. We just need to use the UIColor class method, and Apple has defined us colors for us. So they defined what a white color is in a hexadecimal value. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. You can continue. Okay? And another method we have is make key invisible. And sorry, I want to point this out. If I do command and then click a method, I will then be taken to Apple's documentation, which may or may not be helpful. And in this case, it kind of does help us. This is a method you need to call. You can try making your app without this method and you'll have problems. Most apps call this method to show the main window. So this is what actually makes the app the main window of your app. The main window of your app. So you need this. Very important method. Without this, nothing else will display. Okay? So that's all we need for the application. Okay? Now let's go to our view controller. Okay guys, I'm back. I am now in my view controller class, which is a Swift file that is automatically made for you when you make a basic Swift app. I have done a few things here. I have changed my view controller, which used to be a UI view controller, to a UI table view controller. And what this does is it takes your view, like if you could imagine just in the storyboard a regular view, and it takes your view and puts a table view that encompasses the whole window, the whole view, everything that you see basically. Okay, so this actually saves you a lot of code of actually placing the table view within the view yourself. You're inheriting all the code to place a UI table view in for you from Apple. Okay, then I have an array, and in this case I'm assigning the array to be of type string using brackets around it, and with these quotes at the end I'm initializing it to be an empty array, so I don't need to initialize it in viewDidLoad. I'm then calling viewDidLoad. Not much other specialties there. I am then doing two things that are pretty unique, or you may not have seen. I am setting the right bar item, and what that is this plus button right here. And how to refer to this is that I do navigation item dot right bar item. So if I want my navigation item is this top part right here. It's kind of grayed out, and my table view isn't is behind that in a way. This top view does not interfere with the rest of the screen. So that's called my navigation item. And if I want to add a right bar item, I simply call dot right bar item. I could add a button to the left too by calling left bar item and assign it to a UI bar item, and that takes an enum of a bar button system type. I did dot add for the plus, and then I set the target to self. So that means when you set the target, that means where is the target of this functionality happening. So when this button gets clicked, it's going to look for a method, which is in its action. It's going to look for a method named add clicked. And where should it look for that method? It should look for that method in self. So it should look for that method in this class. That's what it means. And we're going to implement that method in a second. And so I have add clicked, and note this colon. This colon is very important. This colon says I'm a method and I have one parameter. That's what this colon says. It could be named anything you want, but you need that colon. Okay? Then I do TableView.register class, so I'm getting the table view, which I inherit from UITextView Controller, and then I'm registering a class, a basic UITextView class. And this is how you do it in code. Otherwise, you would do this in the storyboard. And I'm giving it a reusable identifier for cell. So this is how the table view doesn't keep on creating new and new cells when you scroll up and down on a table view. If I had 100 elements, it simply reuses the 10 cells on screen, and then when they go off screen, it just reuses those same cells in memory and changes their internal values. Pretty smart. The next two functions are functions you have to override for your table view to work. You need to tell the table view about how many rows it's going to have and how the cells are going to look. So to tell the table how many rows it's going to have, I'm going to say the array.count, because the array we set up top on line 13 is going to have all of our strings that our list is going to display. So the number of rows I'm going to have is the number of strings in my array. Okay, then I have the most important function probably of all is the cell for row at index path method. I'll format this a little bit so it's all on screen, but when I do that, I'm creating a cell calling DQ reusable cell with identifier. So this is what I mean by calling DQ reusable cell. There's just even though there may be a list of 1,000 cells, there's just 10 cells or as many cells as can fit on screen. And as you scroll down or up, all those cells are just reused as one cell goes off screen and another cell goes on screen. So it's very good. This is commonly used in a lot of code because you save a lot of memory and you don't slow down the cells. If you kept on scrolling up and down, you'd waste a lot of memory. Okay, so I get a cell by using that DQ method. Then I set the cell.text label. I get the UI text label from it and set the .text to a string. And that string is whatever cell it is in the array. And I get the position of it in the array by using the index path.row. So that will give me, if it's the 0th position on the array, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 100. And then I return the cell. So I return the cell with it being formatted like I like it. And that's it for this method. That's it for the table. Okay? I'm now going to show you guys the add to clicked method. And that is here. Okay, so the add clicked method, it takes a parameter, the UI bar button item. So it takes, when I click add, it gets sent the same button that was clicked to it, and then I get to run this code. And while this code will not compile because we have not done something, I'll show you guys in a second, I'm going to create a add view controller, assign it to VC, set the VC.delegate equal to this class, which I will explain later, and then I'm going to find the navigation controller, and then that's why we made this class within a navigation controller, and then push our add view controller, our VC, on top of this class, and that's the view controller I showed you guys with the text box, the orange text box I prematurely made. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a add view controller. I'm going to do this by going to to-do list app, clicking new file, going to Swift file, clicking next, typing add ViewController. You can call it anything you want. Make sure it's targeting the to-do list app. Click create, and boom. Change foundation to UI kit. And now let's make this class add ViewController, just like it's named in the file. And we're going to make it inherit from a UIView okay? And now we're going to make it override the same func that most view controllers do, and that's func view did load right there. And now I'm going to copy in the code for this function. Okay, so now I'm back, and we're going to have some more ambiguity until we're crisp and done with the app, so stick with this till the end. But I've done a few things here. So one is I inherit from my UI view controller in my add view controller, but I also implement the UITextView Delegate, and that allows me to implement some UITextView methods if I choose. I will not do it in this one, but it's typical to do that if you're using to implement the delegate of whatever UI element you're using. So usually I like to set the view background color to whatever I want. Black or white is usually the most used one. So I get the view by using self.view, setting the background color. Then I want to do the same thing with that navigation item we used back then. So I'm going to take the navigation item and set the right bar item to done. And then in this I'm using a different constructor to have a title. So I'm setting to done with a capital D, style.done. There's like style.delete, which would make it red. And then I'm targeting the self, saying this method will be in here. And then I'm saying the action. So the method that is actually called when you pressed that button. And it's done, again, with that colon, very important. So then I have this method called done down here, which it's going to call delegate.addToList, which is how I get the string, whatever you enter in the text, back to the table view. And I have not written all the code for that yet, but that is the last thing we're going to do. Then I simply call self.navigationController.pop view controller animated. So that pops off this view and returns us back to the table view controller, which is what we want after we've typed in all the code. Back to this code here, I create a text box from a UITextView, and I give it a rectangle starting at coordinates 0, 0. When you look at in iOS, the coordinate 0, 0 is the top left of your window, not the top right or whatever you learned in algebra or whatever. And going right is positive and going down is positive for y. Going down is positive for y, so that's the opposite of a mathematical xy plane. Then I set the background color just so you can easily see it to orange. I set the delegate to self because I implement the delegate, and then I add the view. If you don't add the subview, you will not see anything. Okay, so you got to add the main view of this view controller, you have to add all the subviews. So you have to add the text box or whatever you're using. Okay, so now we're going to implement our delegate. And one thing I forgot to omit here is that something that we do have to do is I also have another variable, and that is our delegate variable. And so now I want to go more into delegates. And if you've been using delegates a lot, like text view delegate or like a table view delegate, that's all handled by Apple. But now we're going to make our own delegate, and maybe it will help you understand everything more, or that it's really this simple thing that just Apple has done for you, but you can make your own delegates. Okay, so delegates allow you to communicate between classes easier, or they allow you to define an interface or a way of communicating with your methods. And I'm going to show you that when I finish all the code. So note, now we're going to make a protocol called list delegate, and we're going to do this by creating another Swift file. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to go to new file, I'm going to create a file, I'm going to call it list delegate, and let me paste all the code in. You can keep import foundation, even though I usually don't. And I'm going to do @Objective-C protocol list delegate. The @Objective-C is just to say, hey, this protocol can work in Objective-C code too. Because before Swift, there was Objective-C, and it will be used for many more years because so many apps have just been made in Objective-C that switching them over to Swift just would take too much time. Okay, so within this protocol, I'm going to say there's one function that's required if you implement this protocol, and that is called add to list. So now you know that delegates are really just protocols. And when you implement a protocol, you're just saying you're going to define these methods, okay? So now we're going to go back to our ViewController and actually implement these methods, okay? We do this by, first of all, we're going to conform to the protocol by inheriting from it. We're going to conform to the list delegate protocol. So by combining to the list delegate protocol, remember that we simply said this protocol has one function, add to list. If you remember, when you inherit from a UI table view, you define two functions that they say you must use: number of rows in section and cell for row at index path. Well, we say you just must define this function called add to list. Okay? And add to list is going to take a string, and then it's going to append that string to the array, so it's going to add another element, and then you're going to reload the table view to display the newly added element. So you call table view.reload data to do that, okay? So now we're going to revisit some code that didn't make sense earlier. We have this VC equals add ViewController right here, and then we have VC.delegate equals self. So now I'm saying this ViewController, the add ViewController, has a delegate, and that delegate must conform to the list delegate protocol that we made. And so that's why up here we have a variable called delegate, which is the variable we're setting back there, and it is of type list delegate. So it's saying, oh, whatever type this variable has, it must be of type list delegate. Well, our class, our ViewController, is of type list delegate. I defined it as a type of list delegate right up here when I set it, okay? So I'm saying, okay, so now that I've defined it as a type list delegate, I can now, this delegate, if it has its delegate, that's why I put a question mark there, because it could be nil, I then call add to list, and that adds the text box to the list. So now that calls, when I do add to list here, that calls the code in the ViewController. That calls this add to list method from the ViewController. This is very powerful, as you see, because I could make another ViewController that implements list delegate and define a whole different add to list method, but then when I call my add ViewController, I can pass in myself a different ViewController as to the delegate, and a different functionality would happen. So in this way, I've abstracted the two, I've done the proper thing, and I've made the two functionalities different, okay? So this selector, the delegate, or this class does not have to worry about how I add things to the list. It simply has to call add to list, and it doesn't have to care about how it actually works. And then on my end, in my actual table view, I handle how that is getting added to the table. It's getting appended to the array, and then it's getting reloaded. Otherwise, I just call my delegate method. It could do anything. It could be handled a different way from a billion different other classes. And then I pop off, I remove myself, and I let everything go again. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully, let's run this class and make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, build successful. And we start off with an empty controller because, well, there's nothing added initially. I'm going to type in a lot of code. I'm going to type in hello. I'm going to type done, and we see something. I'm not going to add functionality to delete things, so maybe in a bonus video I will show you how to delete things or move rows around, but otherwise, everything seems to be working great. Okay? Have a great day, guys. Let me know if you like this video, and let me know if you like this style. See you later. Bye. Hi, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click right here to see more videos about basic high school, college, computer science concepts. Click down here if you want to see my latest videos on app development, iOS, Mac, and Swift. Have a great day!